Hello everyone, welcome back to Blake's Den. So this is my 1989 Austin Mini Designer project which I've been working on. Thank you to everyone who's recently subscribed to the channel. I've just hit 750 subscribers and just about on target for 1,000 by the end of the year. So it'd be really good if we can get 1,000. So if you're watching this and haven't subscribed, press the subscribe button now. It doesn't cost you anything. Right, today's mission is I'm going to convert one of these, which is a radius arm, into this, which is all the parts which form the radius arm assembly and the drum brakes at the rear. So yeah, basically stripping this down into its component parts. The easy way to do this is to do it on the car when it's still attached to the subframe. Obviously I haven't done that, so I'm going to be using a vise to hold everything in place. So I'm going to put it in the vise and then I'm going to make a start. The first job that I've done is just to hit some of the fasteners with some WD-40 and then attack them with a wire brush just to get a bit of dirt off. So the first thing I'm going to take off is the rear shock. 9/16 spanner on there. And it should, oh hang on, I need to tighten that up in the vise a bit more. And we should be able to crack that off. I think it's going to be a two-handed job. So yeah, let me come back once that is done. Next job is to get the copper brake line off. So that's 9/16 on the union here. I'm just holding the pipe so the pipe doesn't rotate when I undo this. The copper pipe doesn't look too bad actually, but I will be replacing them. I mean particularly the flexies as well. When you've taken a lot of effort to rebuild a car, you don't really want the brakes to fail on the first outing. So yeah, we'll be going through the brakes and sorting them all out. So that's loose from there now. So that should allow that to separate, which it does. And then I've got another nut down at the bottom here. I just need to do the same thing on, and then that pipe will come off. To get the brake flexi off, there's another nut which is on the sort of the brake drum side of that bracket, and that needs to come off. And it is, well, this one is super tight. So I'm just going to give it a bit of persuasion and see if it comes off. So I'm using the ring end of a spanner. There we are, it's got it going. So it's a case of working that off now, and then the whole assembly should just slide off. I'll bring you back when that's done. Once it got loose, the whole pipe started spinning, so I just needed to put a 9/16 on the other end, just to hold it, and then that comes off like that. We'll just put the washers back on, serrated washers. And we'll put that away safe. So that's another bit stripped off. So I think the next bit I'll do, I think I'll start looking at the drum and start getting that apart. Before I try taking the drum off, I want to back off the adjusters on the brakes, on the brake shoes. So that'll increase the clearance to the drum. Now this is the brake adjuster here, and these are notoriously bad for seizing. Also, you must use a 5/16 square sort of wrench on it. You can see how rounded off that one is. Even if you use mole grips or something like that, you still chance of rounding them off. So basically, as you wind this outwards, so left anti-clockwise, that should back off the brakes from the drum. So caked it with WD-40, and I'm going to have a bit of go working that a bit before I take the drum off. So it turns out that was nowhere near as seized as I thought it would be. Give it a fairly heavy knock to start off with, and now it's just winding out by hand, which is great. So I'll show you how that works in a bit. Right, we'll flip the radius arm over and we'll get the drum off. With that adjuster backed all the way off now, the drum spins fairly freely, which is great. There's a little screw which goes in the top here, which holds the drum to the hub. So that needs to be undone. Okay, that wasn't even tight to begin with, which is a bit worrying. So we'll unscrew that. So it's a little countersunk screw. Might be two in there, but it only ever needs one. We'll put that tape over here. And then we need to get the wheel nuts off. And then we should be able to prise the drum off. Now this might need a bit of persuasion. Oh, no it didn't. That wasn't any YouTube magic there. It literally did just lift off. I had a screwdriver ready to lever it off. There we are. It's the drum off. Doesn't look too bad. We've got the brakes in here. They look a bit worn to me. When I did the driver's side of the car, they didn't actually look too bad, but these ones are quite worn. Possibly new wheel bearings required as well. That's just a bit. I didn't quite feel as smooth as I'd like it to be. So, right, I'm going to crack on then and get the brake shoes out. I'll get the adjusters out and then we'll get the hub off and start stripping that down too. So I'm just going to prise the brake drum away from the cylinder. Like that. Oops, sorry. It's quite hard to do this one-handed and film at the same time. So, I'll do the same on the other side, hopefully. That'll go too. There we are. I'm not really too worried about the condition of these because I'm going to replace them anyway. We'll get that pinged off and then we'll lift the shoes off. There we are. They just popped off. Actually, look quite worn at one end, not the other. Obviously, it's like a leading shoe, so it progressively touches the drum, but they'll be getting scrapped anyway. And if you're wondering how the adjuster works, so you can see there you've got two sort of pieces. As I wind this in, you can see how they get pushed further out. So this is just like a cone winding in. When they get pushed out, they sort of push the drum closer to the shoe and compensate for wear, and they're just little sliders. So yeah, that can all come apart too. I think it actually comes out the front, so I need to wind it all the other way. But yeah, I'll get that done, get the handbrake mechanism off too, and then we'll get the brake cylinder off. That's the handbrake mechanism. It just lifts off. That's nice and free. The one on the other side was completely seized, and that just lifts out of that hole there. To get the brake cylinder off, it shouldn't really be that loose anyway. I need to flip it on its other side. To get the brake cylinder out, there's a little circlip in the back here, which is incredibly rusty and it's probably just going to disintegrate. But I'm just going to prise that off with a screwdriver. There we are, and then that should just come through, and there should be a gasket with it as well, but sometimes there isn't. Doesn't appear to be on this one. One thing I forgot to say when working with brakes is, yeah, just be careful of asbestos. It was used in brake linings. I'm not too worried about this car because it will have had new brake linings sometime in its life. But it's just something to be wary of. The next job I want to do is to get the hub off. To get the hub off first, I need to pop off the dust cover, which conveniently this one has a hole in it, and the same on the other side. Shouldn't really have a hole in it. It's to prevent dirt getting into the grease. So maybe somebody's just hammered a screwdriver in like that, like I've just done. But anyway, we'll get that prized off and we'll get to the hub nut below. Retaining the hub nut is a which is a castellated nut, is a sort of split pin, but this one appears to be put in wrong. But I know from past experience it's quite difficult to get in because you set the torque on the nut, and if the holes don't quite align with the gap in the castle like that one, it's very difficult to get the pin in. So all right, I'll pull that pin out and then we'll get that big nut off. And I've got a bit of a trick for doing that. To get the hub nut off, I'm using my Parkside 20 volt impact driver, which is one of the best tools I've bought. It's going to be a bit noisy, but one thing I've got to remember is this nut is handed. So this is the radius arm from the driver's side of the car. So that means it's right to loosen it, left to tighten. So I need to make sure I'm going the right way. Which is not that way, which is that way. So there we are. Came off surprisingly easy. So yeah, so now with the hub nut off, we can then withdraw the hub from the stub axle. The hub has got the bearings in as well as the oil seal. And these bearings feel a bit, oh yeah, look at that. The grease in there, it's all sort of solidified and gone horrible. So new bearings required. Right, I think we can now take the backing plate off the radius arm, which is just 3 nuts and bolts, really simple. Well, I thought that was going to be easy, but one of the nylock nuts just completely stripped the thread and wouldn't come off, so I had to break out the big guns, get the grinder out and sort of split it in half, and now that's off. The backing plate should come off in the little bracket as well, which holds the brake line in place, also comes off. So yeah, pretty much there now. I think the next job we'll get the handbrake mechanism off, or the handbrake quadrant. With the arm flipped upside down, you can see there's a split pin in here which needs to come out, and then the quadrant assembly will come out. Now, when I did the other side, the split pin just wasn't having it and it just broke like that. So it's not the end of the world, you can still get it out if it breaks. I think what we'll just do is we'll just snip it off as close as we can to the end, and then we should still be able to hammer out the quadrant. So if you come back in a second, I will have tidied this up. With all traces of the split pin removed, it should now be possible to hammer this out. So I've just got a little pry bar I'm just putting on the end first, just to see if I can get it going. Okay, need to put it tighter in the vise, but it has actually moved, so it's now flush with the surface. So now if I swap over to a punch, I should be able to punch that all the way through and out the other side. And where did I put my punch? Here's the punch. I have to go and get a different one. This one's a bit fine, but we'll give it a go. Yep, it's coming out. And after a few more hits with a more substantial punch and a bit of WD-40, the quadrants come off. Now these normally seize quite badly, these. How it works is the handbrake cable goes in that notch there and the whole assembly pivots when you pull the handbrake on, but quite often they seize up. So this one's not looking too bad. It's absolutely caked with grease on the other side. So okay, great, we're winning now. I think the last job to do is to get the shaft out, which basically forms the pivot point on the suspension. So with an 8mm spanner on here, we can loosen off the grease nipple. So that's the grease nipple which normally sticks out the end of the radius arm. You have to sort of grease regularly, and then all the grease goes in that hollow bolt and then comes out and lubricates this joint. Now with that out, we should be able to just hammer this out a bit. So again, if I get my pry bar again, I mean, it's actually not taking any hitting at all, really. It's just loose. So there you can see the greased sort of pivot bolt, or whatever you want to call it. So I did check these. I think I remember filming it whilst they were still on the car to check what play was in them. And it's really good. I mean, there was no play at all, so there's no need to replace these. If you do have to replace them, you've got to replace, there's like a liner which goes inside here. That needs pushing out on a press. You also then need to hone out the inside, put a new liner in. It's quite a big job actually. So, right, that's good. Right, last job to do. And that's just to get the suspension knuckle cap out. So there's this nylon cap here, which the suspension knuckle goes into. And when you buy the new knuckles, it comes with another cap. And these are really difficult to get out, both on the front and the back. Sometimes you can get something in behind them like this and sort of prise it open. It's a case of like breaking the skin friction of the cup. The other way I did it on the other arm was I just burnt it out with a blowtorch, and it came out in chunks, and that seemed quite good. So I'm going to persevere with this method and see if it works. And there we are, just managed to prise it out with a screwdriver. So yeah, it's not a part you would reuse anyway. You always get a new one when you get a new knuckle. So that's it really. I think we've stripped everything down. There's the finished breakdown of everything. I'm not removing the stub axle because you've sort of got to press that out and it's fine. So temptation is to crack on and do the other side. I've actually already done the other side, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to label up all these parts first, bag them all up. So when I go to put it back together, I know what I'm doing. I think I'll probably end up just buying brand new backing plates with the brake assemblies already on. So that would end up going back as a spare, strategic spare. I'll renew the brake lines, the pivot shaft, whatever you want to call it. That is fine, just needs cleaning up. The quadrants, fine, needs cleaning up. Hub nut's fine. Hub is fine, but needs new bearings, needs a new grease cap. Handbrake mechanism's fine, but you get that, I think, when you buy a new backing plate. Shoes you get anyway, just as you get. The cylinder you get as well. And yeah, it just all needs sort of cleaning up now. The bits I'm going to retain, obviously I'm retaining the radius arms. So yeah, they all need a good clean. So that's everything bagged up now. I haven't gone too crazy and put like a bolt per bag. I've sort of grouped things together. Labelled them all near, side, rear. Again, just written on there. So yeah, they'll go in my parts cupboard until the time I need them. The radius arms, not sure what I'm going to do with these. I don't know whether to get them vapor blasted or media blasted. And then powder coated, or whether I just clean them up with a wire brush and paint them myself with some sort of epoxy paint. I'm not 100% sure. I need to do a bit more research on that. Another thing I've been doing is, just while I've been bagging bits up, I've just been keeping a bit of a list of things I know I need for when it goes back together again. So I think I'll leave the video there for now. I've been really struggling to get into the garage recently, just finding the time to get in. Hence why I've started some of the smaller tasks, stripping and rebuilding sort of thing. So you may see a bit more of that coming up in the next few videos. So thank you for watching. If you've liked the video, please press like. Also, please subscribe if you haven't done already. I'm aiming to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm recording this on the 8th of May, so there's a bit of work to do, but I reckon we can get there. So yeah, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.